The Resident Evil franchise is known for scary and silly monsters alike, from the basic zombies and zombie dogs to the irregular mutants like Yawn and Drain Deimos. There are all kinds of terrifying things to fight, and that's before getting to the major foes like the Tyrant or the Bakers. But not every foe got its time to shine. Some were repurposed while others remain in the concept art phase. Which are some of the scariest? Let's take a look at some of them here and either speculate or confirm why they never made the cut. Spider-Man. No, not the friendly neighborhood one. The Spider-Man was originally meant to appear in Resident Evil 0 as noted in the developer diary for the re-release. The design offered what looked like an irregular mutant spider infected by the T-virus taking control of a man's body, by attaching itself to the back, sinking its appendages in, and using it to control the limbs and upper body. Was it too much even for a Resident Evil game? You decide.
The forest is full of zombies and monsters.
Zombies and monsters.
Man Spider. Resident Evil really does have an obsession with spiders, doesn't it? On more than a few occasions, Capcom has considered adding spider-adjacent enemies into their Resident Evil games before ultimately cutting them out. Similar to the Spider-Man in Resident Evil 0, the original version of Resident Evil 2, which was ultimately scrapped entirely and is now known as Resident Evil 1.5, was also going to have a large spider-like creature that players would run into. Known as the Man Spider, this massive hairy monstrosity was originally set to appear in Nest, where it would lock horns with an infected William Birkin as well. Everything from the creature's model to its animations had been finished during development, but Resident Evil 1.5 was, of course, scrapped entirely, as was Man Spider itself. That said, its demise did lead to something truly special, because in the final Resident Evil 2, it was replaced by the now iconic Lickers. Zombie Ape. The Man Spider wasn't the only enemy that Capcom had envisioned for the cancelled Resident Evil 1.5 that didn't survive the game's cancellation. Another enemy that players were going to run into was the Zombie Ape. As per the in-game lore, several local animals in Raccoon City had also been infected with the T-virus, including apes, and Leon would square off against 3 infected apes on a few occasions. One encounter was supposed to take place in the RPD's parking lot, where a zombie ape would burst out of an umbrella truck, while in another encounter in Nest, where the apes would crash down on the ground from ventilation ducts in the ceiling. Interestingly enough, zombie apes shared several attacks with Tyrants, including punches and overhead smashes. Even though Capcom had finished working on everything from the creature's model to its AI, it did not appear in any form in the final Resident Evil 2. Wesker's Monster.
You've really become quite an inconvenience for me.
Also present in the same developer diary was a design for Wesker's Monster. This was meant to be Wesker's main means of killing the various STARS Bravo members in Resident Evil 0. It's like a cute monkey mixed with a giant bat, but without wings and also deranged. But since Wesker was dropped from being the game's main villain, Wesker's Monster was ultimately retired and reborn as the Eliminator, a less cute, even more deranged primate that hunted Rebecca and Billy. Licker Zombie. So the Tyrant inferior clearly didn't work out. What about the Licker Zombie, a zombie crossed with a Licker? Originally meant to appear in the Resident Evil 2 remake, the Licker Zombie had longer arms with clawed fingers and elongated tongue, and could seemingly split its face open to reveal the Licker underneath. Perhaps because it looked more like a Licker posing as a zombie, which is just a Licker with extra steps and undead flesh, the Licker Zombie was cut. However, you can still find concept art for it in-game. The Hookman. Back when Resident Evil 4 was more of a hallucinatory experience, the Hookman was meant to be an otherworldly presence that could teleport. Interestingly, Yasuhisa Kawamura, who wrote the scenario for Resident Evil 3, was behind its creation. He told Project Umbrella that Hookman was just an experiment with no real backstory, inspired by the movie The Lost Souls. Supposedly, the purpose of Hookman was more to show off the game's special effects and its QTE system, which of course the final Resident Evil 4 went on to use liberally, almost excessively, and was never actually meant to be in the game as an actual enemy. In that version of RE4, now colloquially referred to as Resident Evil 3.5, Hookman was supposed to be a hallucination that would appear to the infected Leon and would be a nearly undefeatable enemy, though he was supposed to be vulnerable to light. Unfortunately, development for this version of Resident Evil 4 became too costly and it was rebooted, with Shinji Mikami's scenario taking center stage. Sayonara Hookman, we barely knew thee. Black Fog. Another new enemy type from the original Resident Evil 4, or Resident Evil 3.5, that did not survive the project's cancellation was Black Fog, and this one was really interesting, because it was quite unlike anything Resident Evil had done up until that point. As the name suggests, the Black Fog was a mist-like creature that had been created by Umbrella's rival company HCF using a new virus. Leon was originally supposed to encounter the Black Fog in the opening hours of the game, and this encounter, interestingly enough, would lead to Leon getting infected, which in turn would eventually lead to him hallucinating the Hookman. The reason Capcom eventually ended up dropping the Black Fog as an enemy wasn't the project's cancellation though. During development, they realized that the GameCube simply wasn't capable of handling the sort of animations they would need to craft for this enemy, which meant it had to be removed from the game entirely. And that wraps it up. If you like what we are doing, please consider subscribing to our channel, and don't forget to switch on the bell notification icon. That way you will never miss out on any of our videos.